Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Shayar's Voice. Today I have with me Ghaffar, who is my senior at LUMS and also a senior colleague in my previous job. Ghaffar has been associated with different, I would say, startups and different companies, mainly in the tech space. So today, mainly हम बात करेंगे around the tech space and the startup space in Pakistan, but in general as well. And I'm looking forward to just like casual chat. How are you, Ghaffar? And then we can just like start. How are you? How are you?
I
How
am
is it working at like this hour in Pakistan?
I am good. I would say कि for those who don't know what this hour is, it's 4:30
Yeah, it's
a.m.
it's almost 4:30 in Pakistan right now. Uh,
Yeah,
यहीं से
it's ex
yeah, go on first and then we can.
no, no, I was saying it gets exhausting. But it's a Friday, so I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah,
Um, but by now I'm used to the nocturnal routine. So पहले मैं USM में जब when I was working for US Mobile,
yeah,
I was also working. The hours weren't this bad, but I remember similar ही थे.
yeah,
और अब when I'm working for a Canadian startup जहाँ Eastern time follow होता है
yeah.
तो my day ends at 4 5 a.m.
Yeah, and I feel like coming on to this point, a lot of people watching this might have remote jobs in the US and Canada and like Australia and all these other weird time zones. And sometimes हम ये realize नहीं करते कि a lot of people not from so much privileged backgrounds end up working all night at the Pakistan India time zone as freelancers or working for these companies because at the end of the day, obviously it's better growth, better pay and everything. And yeah, that was just the introduction point. Something I want to talk to you about was one of your roles at a femtech startup which you know as is how was it working for them. I would say firstly as a guy, because it was mainly female. The team mainly was there, like it was a female dominated team as well. And दूसरा जिस target audience को वो target कर रहे थे और वो जो जिस topic के around वो सारा market कर रहे थे पाकिस्तान में that still I would say female fitness पे अभी भी इतनी बात नहीं होती और अगर होती भी है तो सिर्फ एक बहुत restrictive सा circle है in like Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. I would say a very upper class sort of circle hai when it comes to female fitness. How was your experience there?
So I think they were you bundled three questions, so I'll try my best
Yeah,
to answer all of
sorry,
them.
sorry for
So
that. Yeah,
it's completely okay. So I think थोड़ा सा background दे देता हूँ लोगों के कि about what AimFit is very briefly. So AimFit is a femtech startup which is working primarily in the fitness and wellness space. So and I won't go into a lot of detail, but if anyone has ever used MyFitnessPal, right, and has used a fitness application like India में एक होता है Healthify Me है.
okay,
So if you and then there are other competitors as well like Sweat है. But anyways, anyone that has used a fitness application online, which I'm assuming most of us would have, that have access to a mobile phone and internet का भी जिंदगी में कोई ना app download की होगी and MyFitnessPal which is a nutrition tool तो वो kind of it's not a hybrid but it basically is in a similar space and that's probably a very bad way to describe AimFit but I'm just trying to draw parallels to
yeah,
say that it was a product that was trying and is trying and still is um, trying to capture the fitness and the wellness market in Pakistan and that too for females only. Acha, जहाँ तक where you pointed out that working primarily with with where most of my coworkers are female, most of my coworkers weren't. The leadership team was. So the CEO, the COO, the head of product, the chief growth officer, the chief brand officer, they were all female, and that was deliberate because mission alignment बेहतर थी. Where और फिर उसके बाद जो so but engineering team में we didn't have a lot of females.
yeah,
And actually and similarly product team में until the very end I struggled to onboard or I struggled to find female engineers, female tech talent, and which is a you know whi- which is particularly unfortunate for AimFit because when you are making a product, when you're making a product for the female target audience, it helps to have that, even though the leadership team was, right, we had that kind of, it wasn't that we were missing out on that perspective, but to be able to have that perspective from someone who is directly involved in the day-to-day building is also super important. So, okay, just as a side point, wanted to point this out. So your first question was about particularly, okay, how was it? How did I find myself to work in an environment where
Yeah,
the leadership team was, where two things, right? One, the leadership team was female, and second, that where my main target audience was also female, um, and then the third thing was the nature of the product. So जहाँ पे leadership team की बात आती है, to be very honest, it has been one of the finest experience. So I've worked in 4 roles so far, and it was one of the finest experiences that I've ever had. The culture has probably been unmatched, and it's not a fair comparison कि मैं अपना current role, because current role में everyone is remote, so the culture is there, but it's it's very multicultural,
yeah.
um और multicultural भी है, but वहाँ यहाँ पे उस तरीके की bonding नहीं होती, which is natural, right? Because people
You
almost
can't
never end up
over remote. You can't. मतलब आप उस तरह की bonding कर भी नहीं सकते. It's kind of
कोशिश होती है कोशिश होती है, but it's very difficult. So yes, so if I compare it with the 3 previous roles and the internship experience and so much of what I hear from friends and colleagues and whatnot, it was one of the best cultures to work at. Uh, and when you truly, like, for example, growing up, and not just growing up, जब आप एक specifically, when you've just seen working, or where you've seen almost everyone around you also work under male leadership, primarily
yeah.
because there's a certain perception that's attached care to ठीक है, female leadership is going to be weak, they can't take the tough decisions, or they don't, level headed is नहीं होती, or whatever XYZ. But I would say that in a lot of ways, the way that I've seen, the grit, the level-headedness, the composure, the ability to deal with crisis by the female leadership, I would say it's very much a miss, amongst the same leadership in other companies that I've been a part of.
And
So,
yeah,
with a very, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Go on first. आप खत्म कर
No,
लेना.
I'm saying it was pleasantly surprising. Um, it wasn't surprising by the time कि जब मैंने बात की थी, when I first talked to Noor, and when she onboarded Noor, who was my boss, and one of the co-founders at AimFit. So it just reiterated my belief in something. कि, the all of these beliefs, or so-called beliefs of ours, that we often, I don't want to say take for granted, but that we don't get out of our comfort zone to kind of explore alternative possibilities,
Yeah.
it makes us miss out on so much. The amount of learning and the amount of grooming and the amount of empathy that I learned directly from Noor is, I think, going to be unmatched. Um, and it was a great experience. So you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just want to you mentioned that when you were like trying to recruit for engineering and product team, and you couldn't get a lot of female talent. And initially, I used to think कि ये सिर्फ let's say the global south की problem है, but like even after coming to the Netherlands and like looking at the ecosystem all over the world, I feel like women in tech generally is considered as कि अभी भी majority of the engineering and product teams, and mainly the tech oriented teams in the world as well, like even in big tech, are male dominated spaces. मतलब उसके अंदर, even if you look at like Meta and Google and all these companies as well. And I feel like startup which you were working on in Pakistan, maybe abhi it's gonna take a lot of time before we can have like a lot of women coming into tech. But it's I think it's a work in progress. Because अभी भी आप देखो कि मैंने खुद ये notice करा है कि like when it comes to like people and culture and HR and let's say strategy and let's say marketing and branding, you have some roles just where you can see a lot of female talent in Pakistan. But when it comes to like I don't know data analysis and I don't know programming and coding and all of this, then you have like again the वो एक male dominated space आपको लगती है. मतलब I feel like you felt this as well, like working for different companies.
Definitely, and I think कि खाली ये बात जो थी, it's not just true for even right now. I'm working at a Canadian startup, right?
Yeah.
The truly multicultural country of the
Yeah, the
world.
yeah, the liberalist, I would say something like that. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, liberal or not, but one of the most
Yeah,
multicultural countries in the
one of
world.
the most multicultural
Yeah,
companies in the world. That's true when it comes to Canada.
and there are no female product managers. There are no female engineers. There are female leaders, right?
Yeah,
Um, but the point is that आपके पास, like you mentioned, like you pointed out, that women in tech is something has been has been a problem. It has also been something that in recent times has been taken up and has been raised awareness about by foundations like Women in Tech. तो और वो एक perception पे काम कर रहे थे ना कि women are more suited to HR roles
yeah,
primarily because वो, if you remember, एक वो जो TV show Mad Men के वो
yeah,
Mad Men मेरे दिमाग में randomly आया, but
yeah.
their ability that okay, humans are more suited for HR roles because they're more empathetic. They you know so there are certain positives that are associated with that role. कि अच्छा, ठीक है, they are more of a people's person. They can understand, they are able to relate to people, for which are great things.
They're good
But
listeners, and
yes,
yeah, it was just
but if you kind of dig deeper into this kind of sexism. I'm not at sexism to me, but if you sexism, yes, but if you start to dig deeper behind these kind of these reasonings that are given as to why they still look specifically for females for these roles, there also this belief that okay, women can't handle, like I mentioned earlier, they can't handle the tough job. Maybe they're not as technically sound. Or just a I remember one of the one of the senior engineering leaders जो एक स्टार्टअप में थे, उनसे मैंने पूछा था कि आपके पास फीमेल इंजीनियर्स नहीं, उनसे मैं पूछ रहा, they were recruiting for a QA and I asked them कि अच्छा ठीक है, आपके लिए, and he said कि अगर QA के लिए like try and look for a female engineer. I was like, weird, why would you want a female engineer? And very strange reasoning that I don't really want to repeat here. Uh, but it was along the same lines कि आपका bias इतना strong है, that that's a cultural problem, and it's not like कि ये खैर पाकिस्तान का problem है या साउथ एशिया का problem है,
हाँ,
but
ये
यहाँ
हर
पे
जगह है.
जितना
हाँ,
ज्यादा वाजे होता है kind of is that um it was very difficult to find. It is very difficult, especially in के women in tech को ढूंढना in Pakistan. के globally तो बहुत ज़्यादा effort हो रही है, and I feel like, for example, especially with these startups, um, you know, it's I feel if there is a path to equality that is going to be achieved sooner, it's going to be that a lot of that is going to be achieved via startups than it is going to be through traditional
yeah,
companies.
yeah.
Uh, यहाँ पर भी I feel the same way. You have seen a rise in female entrepreneurs in this country. तो अगर ये जो एक fintech startup था, which was about committees, जो मेरा नाम उससे भूल रहा, नौशीन हयात,
I'm not sure. I
sim,
think मैंने सुना तो
sim,
था कि committee based startup था, but I don't know the full details.
similarly, similarly, if you think about जो अभी फिलहाल इमफिट की बात करें, या एक और startup है which is called Metric. So there are female founders. Similarly, जो आपकी NIC की जो chair थी, who's that person who's a legendary? I keep forgetting her name. Who is now looking at Catalyst Labs,
जहाँ आ रहा, I think.
Jahan Ara,
हाँ
right?
जी, हाँ,
So
yeah.
I'm pretty glad that there
Yeah,
is there is a rise of a counterculture.
Yeah,
There
that's
is this,
that's that's true. I want to move on to the other part जिसके बारे में मैंने सोचा हुआ था. तो considering your educational background, LUMS में आपने economics की degree करी. I did like a finance degree. That's fine, okay. But most of your roles have been product and engineering related. And considering you don't have formal engineering education in that way, like आपने कोई lumps के अंदर coding CS100 CS200 नहीं किया, आपने engineering core subjects nahi liye. You did like a normal economics math intensive degree, and then when you started working and you had to learn a lot of things on the job, I'm assuming because I see baat hai when it comes to like intelligence and data analysis and working with different tools. So do you think a product managers या product management manager बनने के लिए अब ये बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस होते हैं कि you need like formal education. Do you think formal education की जरूरत है या you can just like do an economics or a liberal arts or a humanities degree and you can still be a good product manager?
so over the last few months, खास तौर पे, and not just the last few months, I've had this realization that almost nothing except for extremely specialized roles, like if you want to be a doctor, or if
Yeah,
you want to be a nurse, or if, for example, you want to be, I don't know, a pilot, right? You do not, it doesn't really matter what your training is in your undergrad. हाँ, अगर आपने engineering नहीं पढ़ी, computer sciences नहीं पढ़े, so it's going to be difficult for you. Not difficult, nahi, you will have to upskill yourself right after, when you graduate, if you do decide to move to tech, and if you do specifically decide that you want to do software engineering, it's not impossible. The खास तौर पे with, you know, recent times में जिस तरह एक edtech boom आया है, where almost like it's very easy to upskill yourself, and it's very
yeah,
easy to find a pathway to meet your desired goal. So back to what I was saying, that I've realized that almost nothing, almost, and this is a realization that it's not profound. It's not something that I'm saying that's new. And it's something that, has been kind of initially started out as whispers when with um, when you saw all of these massive online open courses, like ये जो Harvard or ये जो edX का
हाँ,
भी जमाना याद हो,
हाँ,
people started saying, oh, will training even matter? It does matter.
it
So
does
this is
matter.
my opinion. You going to LUMS, you going to Harvard matters, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to matter about what you're trained about,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
You're training, and again, this is not a black and white statement. If I'm saying that training doesn't matter, इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि, oh, if you're doing English lit and tomorrow you want to get a job at a startup in product management, you're going to find it as easy as someone who's done comp sci. नहीं,
Exactly.
ऐसा नहीं होगा.
हाँ,
So there are levels and there are nuances here. But what I'm saying is that your training at your university, it's not just about, it's about network, it's about the environment, it's about working and interacting in a multicultural setting, understanding the, like, the rigor, if you're in academia, the academic rigor. If you're in a business school, understanding and working with professors and companies that have real time, real world experience. And all of those things matter because all of those things contribute to you developing professionally, to you developing academically, to you developing as a person, right? हाँ, और वो सारी चीजें तो it's an entire package, right? And it's not just one thing that can be easily dissected. मेरा
yeah,
कहने का मकसद ये है कि
mm,
अगर आपकी ट्रेनिंग जो है वो फाइनेंस में है, या अगर मेरी ट्रेनिंग इकॉन और मैथ में है, and if I want to move to tech, then it's not it's I have to be very conscious about the steps I need to take, but it's not impossible for me, or it's not even hard for me to get, right? Because ये जो आपके recent times में ये जो आ- आपने एक जो चीज जो एक ट्रेंड देखना शुरू किया है कि जो ये डिफाइंड रोल्स और डिफाइंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज का फिनोमेना था ना, दैट इज ऑफ द पास्ट, राइट?
exactly,
यू नो,
exactly.
you you are judged on the basis of your experience, your portfolio, your referrals, your network,
Your network, I think,
your
that's important as well.
your ability to be able to talk, your ability to be able to communicate. Like, one of the timeless skills will always and continue to remain be for almost any professional role is how well you write, how well you speak. So, getting to your point earlier, कि product management हो या engineering या programming, जो या ज़्यादा और technical field हो, programming engineering, it's not really that difficult to do so, or it's not really that difficult to enter into such a role if you know that that's what you want to do, and if you are, for example, if if you're willing to put in the effort, there's literally the, it's a solved problem, right?
Yeah,
Make I come back to this. I come back to this. Now when I think about it, it's a mental model that I've developed. क्या is it a solved problem or is it an unsolved problem? Solved problem meaning क्या कितने लोगों ने ये pathway पहले लिया हुआ है? If if a th if hundreds of thousands of people have done this before, then means it's a solved. It's not just a solved problem. It's like a pretty, like, it's a marketed problem.
yeah,
Like आप जाके कहीं भी जाके you can go and look for it, and you would be able to find like 10 different ways that hundreds of different of people, hundreds of thousands of people have been able to secure, hundreds and thousands शायद exaggeration हो जाएगी, but have been able to secure their role that they wanted to, despite them getting a completely different training in the undergrad. Okay,
yeah.
so
I
so
just
it's
wanna,
very
like, मुझे इसी पे थोड़ी सी बात करनी थी, because I kind of went through a transformation, did a bachelor's in finance, doing a master's in media, बट पाकिस्तान के अंदर अभी भी ये समझा जाता है कि अगर आप एक स्पेशलाइज्ड डिग्री नहीं करोगे, सो यू कांट एंटर द टेक सीन, और यू कांट डू डिफरेंट रोल्स एज वेल. And for all those who are watching, if you like English lit, you can always do an English lit degree. And if you like, I don't know, let's say economics or anything else as well, your degree, you've seen recently, you've seen so many people who end up in Apple, Meta, Microsoft, McKinsey, in fact, as well, with like a law degree. Or I've seen people ending up in McKinsey with like a anthropology and sociology degree as well. So you don't have to necessarily,
वो
yeah,
what does McKinsey do? Like, for example,
it's solving problems, right? अब वो उसके अंदर वो जितना मर्जी कॉम्प्लेक्स हो जाए, but you need मतलब आपको फैंसी बिजनेस डिग्री की जरूरत नहीं, right?
it's not even that esoteric. It's not like, for example, solving problem. It's literally just being able to kind of जब आप McKinsey में होते हो या जब कंसल्ट बड़ी कंसल्टेंसीज में जाते हो, तो आपके प्ले बुक्स दी जाती हैं कि अच्छा अगर आपको इस तरह का क्लाइंट है, मतलब as in it's literally it's
Working by the
coming
book,
back to my
following the playbook, that's it, right? Like, to
yeah
some extent.
yeah to some extent, and that kind of perception जो जो बात करते हैं हम कि अच्छा ठीक है, what does then like, for example, कि जो आपने एंथ्रोपोलॉजी की डिग्री बताई है, कराची यूनिवर्सिटी का एंथ्रोपोलॉजी का बच्चा can't take a McKinsey job. It's a LUMS university का एंथ्रोपोलॉजी का बच्चा that's getting a
Yeah.
McKinsey job,
उस पे मैंने
right?
आना था, उस पे भी मैं like I want to touch upon that as well. उससे पहले, just one more thing. I've this is, I think, my 21st episode, but एक चीज जो मैंने नोट करी है, because due to my network, ये बहुत privilege बात में करूंगा, but most of the people I get here are LUMS, IBA, or like U of T, और कहीं वो बाहर से पाकिस्तानी Indians जो पढ़ते हैं. I feel like people working in tech, जैसे you are an example कि there are two kinds of or three kinds of people working in tech. एक तो होते हैं जो okay, they're specialized in their role, they can code like a maniac, like मतलब उनसे आप 12 घंटे कोडिंग करवा लो. But when it comes to their world view, when it comes to their understanding, networking, public relations, working the room वाली जो skills होती है ना, उनके अंदर नहीं होती. But then again, we have a lot of people in Pakistan, LUMS, IBA से, जिनकी ठीक है technical degrees होती हैं, but they know what's happening in the world. They know how to talk to people. They know how to be politically correct. They know how to address, like, how to, like, working with female colleagues, or working with colleagues मतलब जो minority से आते हैं, and all of that, right? So I feel like that's important as well, कि अगर आपकी fancy degree, okay, that's fine, but आपका थोड़ा सा world view होना चाहिए, like in today's age as well. मतलब there are certain things you can't say while you're working in big tech, no matter how great of a coder you are. you might get cancelled very soon as well. मतलब आज के दौर में.
I just don't think it's about just big tech. It's sorry, there's a point that you mentioned earlier that I'm pretty passionate about. You said that it's a widely held belief in Pakistan that if you're not trained
Yeah,
as per, like for example, if you don't do a specific training, or if you don't train for your eventual job, तो आपको वो job नहीं मिलेगी. I just I don't know how many people are listening or will eventually listen or will give any value to what I say, but for God's sake,
yeah,
that that time or that era of boomers, of
yeah.
completely uninformed adults and individuals trying to explain to us how the world supposedly
Works.
works
Yeah,
is
that's
has ended, and it's better if you move on. Like for example, if you think that at any point in time, like this widely held belief that आप engineering बन के, like I have a lot of respect and value for engineers. Like आज के ज़माने में engineers are some of the most widely, like some of the most highly valued individuals in terms of like in the job market. But हमारी जिस तरह की एक individual की एक engineering training होती है, राइट, और खास तौर पे जो आर्केक तरीके से पढ़ाया जाता है, जहाँ पर किसी एक इंडिविजुअल को अपने आप को पॉलिश या अपने आप को मार्केट करने की स्किल नहीं दी जाती, और वो एक इंडिविजुअल जो हम शायद बात करेंगे बाद में जो लम्स हो, जिसके पास शायद सेम लेवल ऑफ स्किल और सेम लेवल ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो, बट बिकॉज ऑफ हिज नेटवर्क, बट बिकॉज ऑफ द वे दैट ही नोज हाउ टू कम्युनिकेट एंड हाउ टू मार्केट हिमसेल्फ, हैज they will end up in completely different trajectories. So, okay, to cut a long story short, please stop giving a damn about what boomers in this country think. They've
yeah,
destroyed our country for you know,
yeah.
as
Like
is,
5 years
jitna
back.
zyada.
Yeah,
So, I keep telling my mom, in a funny but also kind of a jab to both my mom and my dad that your generation ruined Pakistan. But okay, it's a,
I feel like
okay,
it's
anyway.
it's
So
not only a Pakistan specific thing, I would say as well, but ये भी मेरा next point था because
नहीं, but Pakistan specific नहीं था. But if you think about, like, for example, if you like, देखो ना, we didn't really do anything right. Like, okay, Pakistan specific, हमने India got few things right. We
yeah,
didn't get those right.
yeah,
Bangladesh got few things right. We
yeah.
didn't get those right.
I just wanna मुझे
So,
उसी के बारे में बात करनी थी because for the first
and
time,
to sorry,
yeah, yeah.
sorry. Now, I just want to make sure that I answer your question. Your second question about, for example, I think liberal education is extremely important. It's not just in big tech that you can't say problematic stuff. People have started to
Anywhere,
become extremely anywhere in the
anywhere.
world, right? And it's like, you can be extreme. And I'm not saying when you gave that example of a 12-hour coder, yeah, you can be an introvert. Like, at times you can be an introvert. It doesn't mean that you have to interact with people, right? Ye- But I think liberal education, the foundation, I have only realized that lately कि कितना important होता है कि alternative opinions को एक और alternative सोच को, alternative ideas को, alternative histories को explore करना, समझना, सीखना, चाहे आप जिस field से belong करते हो. Because once you start to understand, like for example, like once you start to get a grasp of what you don't know, right? Like for
Yeah,
example, just the slightest bit of grasp of what you don't know, and what you don't know, it will completely it will it's going to be the most humbling experience of your life.
exactly
um
बिल्कुल ऐसे ही है.
and ये जो आई डोंट नो ये हमारे अंदर का ये कहाँ से, खैर मुझे पता है कहाँ से आता है, बट ये जो एक male macho version jo which makes you think that you're right all the time, and it boils my blood to think like look at where you are. Like it's not really that hard to draw a comparison with almost any other country in the world and see how far you've fallen.
Exactly.
But
It
that
sometimes
confidence,
it just boggles your mind. Sorry मैं बात
but
काटता हूँ मैं. Yeah,
that confidence still persists. So okay, go ahead.
it does, and I feel like it's also the lack of exposure as well. Like with me, like I probably got one of the best education someone can get in a country like Pakistan. And even for me, when I've just been here for a year now, in the Netherlands, but when I like interacted with different kinds of people, especially like people from India and Bangladesh, मतलब बाकी मुल्कों की तो मैं मिसाल ही नहीं देता ना, वो तो खैर वो तो लाइक लीप्स अहेड ऑफ अस ना, बट इवन इन इंडिया बांग्लादेश इज डूइंग वे बेटर देन अस। सब कुछ छोड़ दें, हम सिर्फ टेक और स्टार्टअप्स की बात ही करना शुरू कर दें, like what the IITs over there are doing or what the Bangladeshi startups are doing and how much they love education. They will do anything to get educated in like not the elite education, not, and they don't have like fancy A level colleges like us. जो like Karachi में तो like Sir ICM and Lahore Grammar and Roots and all, they're coming out of the normal matriculation FSC system, and they're making it to the Silicon Valley, they're making it to Harvard, Stanford, and all the places in the world as well. So yeah, like sometimes I feel like back in Pakistan, people still think कि हम कोई पता नहीं बहुत ही कोई talented and बहुत ही कोई extra किस्म के लोग हैं, but
बट ये
uh,
बिलीफ अब कम हो रहा है. आई फील
कम
लाइक
हो
दिस
रहा
इज
है,
स्टार्टिंग.
रियलिटी चेक मिल रहा है। आई फील लाइक जैसे जैसे पाकिस्तानीज इंटरेक्ट कर रहे हैं, ग्लोबलाइजेशन बढ़ रही है, एवरीवनस गेटिंग ऑन टू द नेटफ्लिक्स बैंडवैगन, मतलब आप ज्यादा दूर नहीं जाएं, आप सिर्फ दुबई चले जाएं, आप सऊदी अरेबिया चले जाएं, आप आई डोंट नो आप बहरीन चले जाएं, लाइक इवन द मिडल ईस्ट इज ट्राइंग टू रियलाइज दैट देयर इज अ टाइम जब आप सिर्फ अपनी दुकान नहीं चला सकते विद लाइक रिलीजन एंड मोरालिटी. You need skills, you need tech, you need networks, you need collaborations and all of that as well, right? And yeah, things are changing, but again I feel like जो आपने archaic वाली बात करी, पाकिस्तान के masses अभी भी उसी तरह की archaic education से गुजरेंगे. वो तो thankful to YouTube and all these tech startups के people are like changing their mindsets and all as well. I want to talk about thoda sa about product specific. Okay, when it comes to like let's say product management, like I've been looking at different trends, and people just think के लोग मतलब जब नौकरी ढूंढ रहे होते हैं, okay, they'll just Google like okay how to be a product manager or what degree should I have for a product manager, because product manager seems very cool these days. It's like the next big, I don't know, the equivalent of an investment banker at like I think JP Morgan or something. So आजकल में product, even on LinkedIn, like if you look at people's headlines, like if they're a product manager, that's just it. They'll just like discard everything else they've done in their life. So I want to talk about that, Kate, like working as a product manager, like you as well. How was that experience? And do you feel like you're gonna stick to this Wali this line, or you're probably gonna switch later?
Uh, so first of all, I think there has been quite a significant boom in product management roles, but ये जो boom है investment banking से compare करना फिर मुझे थोड़ा सा again I think it's a false equivalence because जहाँ पर अब I don't really have the data right now in front of me to back it up, but I think one of the reasons why you know जो आपके ये जो investment banking के roles थे which became so coveted was because of the fact that there was a significant demand for it, but
Yeah,
only so much, like, very, very low supply for it. तो
yeah,
जब आपका स्टार्टअप अब स्टार्टअप्स में जाहिर सी बात है कि दे आर इट्स अ बॉटम अप मूवमेंट राइट. तो अब आपके पास so it's not really that hard to become like it's not really that difficult to become a product manager as it is to become an investment banker. So I think कि वो जो एक एक scale of okay what is the um how much clout do I have
yeah,
would vary करता है, but again it depends. If you're a product manager at Google, if you're a product manager at Netflix, then maybe sure. Why did this role all of a sudden like get blown out of proportion? I I don't quite know, to be very honest, but I know that what it went hand in hand with the with the startup culture, just with startups just basically becoming or just with startups just basically making a mark in almost any economy in the world. तो और शायद हमारे नोटिस में अब आया हो, but product manager is quite a like it's not a new role.
yeah,
It's something that it's like Google शायद अपने early 2000 से हायर करता आ रहा है.
yeah,
तो जब हमने इंडिया में और हमने अपने when we saw in our surrounding economies there were roles like product management and they started to attract a lot of attention because There's also this perceived importance of a product manager. Okay, they're one of the ways that product managers are often defined, that it's the CEO of the product, right? And if it's the product that you're selling, then becoming the CEO obviously is very important. Reality is very different.
Yeah,
I think it's still a very early role. It's going through its phase where the role itself is. I know and I've experienced working in both in different ecosystems. It means very different in different ecosystems. Means very different in the different nature of startups. That if one is working in a consumer startup versus one working in a B2B SaaS startup, the product managers and the skills required and the day-to-day work is very different. So it's a role that's kind of it's very like उसका nature different है उसके it will mature over time. Um, and I know for a fact, like, you don't definitely need any formal training for it. There's a really, really good article about how Google, when early on, they didn't have product managers, and to begin with, and there was no formal training for product managers. Though now, if you look at, I think अब product management के master's degree भी आना शुरू हो गई है.
yeah.
I know
Lately शुरू
uh,
हुई है, मैंने भी I think recently देखी है कि there's some sort of
there is this कॉर्नेल है या फिर CMU है जिसका एक प्रोग्राम भी है प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट के लिए. खैर, एनीवेज, तो उनकी वो बेसिकली है कि हाउ डू सो it touched on a lot of different areas about how to enter into the product management field, because क्योंकि मुश्किल है ना थोड़ा सा.
हाँ.
um, आपके पास there is no technical training for it, and there's no defined path. Okay, people later on in their life also want to go into product management. तो उसके डिफरेंट तरीके बताए थे, और उनमें ये होता है कि like early on, if you're starting out, then you want to go to a company where you can enter as an associate product manager or as a product analyst and work with a team where there is a product culture. Much later on, if you want to go, you will still have to go, like, you need to probably understand. For example, if you work in customer experience, then you realize that, okay, where can I find a job as a product manager which complements the skill and the experience that I've already learned? And so when I'm trying to cover the rest of the ground, there's only so much that I need to do.
Hmm.
So, so basically, to answer your question, okay, it blew out of proportion primarily because of the perceived importance, um, and because it was the place where all the cool kids started going. तो वो जो एक network
Yeah,
effect आना शुरू हुआ ना,
yeah,
कि अच्छा ठीक है,
that's
डायरेक्टली ग्रेजुएट हो गए. और फिर उसके बाद उसकी एक जो वैल्यू भी है ना, कि क्योंकि, और ये बात ठीक है काफी हद तक, के when you're working as a product manager, you have the holistic view of you have a holistic view of how the product is performing, where the company is heading, how to manage people, how to manage products, okay, which is I don't want to get into a lot of nitty gritties, um, and how what the role exactly entails, and I can probably link to other people that would do a better job in articulating that.
नहीं. मुझे बस
But
या जिस एक एक मुझे वही मैंने पहले प्रोडक्ट का सवाल पूछ लिया. बट द थिंग इज कि इवन लाइक व्हेन इट कम्स टू वर्किंग फॉर टेक, जैसे you said blew out of proportion, right? Even working for tech and what we saw recently, right, like with the meta layoffs, लोगों के दिमाग में ये बैठ के है, like मेरी थोड़ी सी आदत है, it's also part of my academic degree here, कि I go through comments a lot and trends a lot. And sometimes Pakistanis and India में भी ये बहुत है. The bandwagon is कि just FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, FANG, I'm not sure N starts for, but like Google, and मतलब हमें बस इन्हीं के लिए काम करना है. And they just hop onto a, मतलब उनको लगता है they'll hop onto a plane, they'll land in the US, they'll get their, I don't know, H1 B1 visa, I guess, and just like work for tech. And now we are seeing कि after the meta layoffs, a lot of people can't even stay in the US for more than 90 days if they don't get another job, right?
60.
60 हो गया, I think 9, अच्छा यहाँ पे 90, I think यहाँ पे 90, I'm not sure, but I'm confusing the regulations. But I recently came across a couple of LinkedIn posts, like people were working for different companies. Do you feel like tech, it's is it worth it to burn all your boats and just like get into the tech wala bandwagon, or you can always keep your options open? मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि आपकी अगर
ये एक तो डिपेंड करता है ना कि टेक का क्या मतलब है। एक टेक
मतलब
इनेबल्ड
लाइक
कंपनीज हैं।
मतलब बिग टेक बेसिकली, मतलब कंपनीज जिनको कोई भी खरीद सकता है एंड यू जस्ट लेड ऑफ द नेक्स्ट डे.
If you're in big tech, then you're pretty secure. Sure, Meta laid off, but Meta laid off after doubling its employees count almost every year in
Yeah,
the past 5 years.
yeah,
And the kind of insane benefits and compensation that you got, I take that bet anytime. It's the
yeah,
startups and the early stages that are at the risk.
yeah,
So big tech में अगर आपको job मिल जाती है, then you are still pretty secure. You're as secure as you can be, right?
yeah.
Tech generally is volatile, but वो it's a
I feel like अब तो हर चीज ही
I
volatile हो गई.
don't
I don't know, after COVID, it's just so, I
yeah
don't
I don't
know.
again, right, like for example, I want to be careful while kind of I want to be careful with my words while saying कि यार अच्छा आप like up like I don't really have the data to back up catch up, for example, how are other industries performing, और फिर उसके बाद other industries में क्या की banking हो गई, या for example like अगर आप like generally अगर obviously banking के अलावा भी बहुत ज्यादा है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो गई या कुछ भी हो गई, तो वो भी एक in a lot of ways they're also undergoing a revolution, and there are as equally impacted by the ups and downs of the
That's
economy
true. That's true.
as the technology world, maybe more so right now because um, आपके जो ये indexes पे और ये आपके stock exchanges पे जो overcrowdedness of technology companies in recent years has been quite a lot, and there
Yeah,
has been a lot of speculation. When there are margins to be gained,
yeah, that's
um,
true.
right? तो वो ओवर स्पेकुलेशन की वजह से भी परफॉर्मेंस पे बहुत ज्यादा मतलब वजन, शायद हमें उसकी परसीव्ड वॉलेटिलिटी ज्यादा लगती है, बट मुझे लगता है कि जैसे जैसे एज इट बिकम्स द न्यू नॉर्म ओवर टाइम, so go back to the dot com burst, right? So when the dot com burst happened, everyone thought that okay, internet and the technology companies are not going to like, everyone wanted to downplay the importance, but people that knew about what the future looks like, or the people that wanted to shape the future, knew that it is this is what the future is. And 20 years later, think about where we are. Sure, we are like, we're still going through a massive crunch, but think about how much, like, I still remember, the early 2000s. I still remember the handheld devices,
Yeah.
the phones that my dad used to brought, and
Nokia
we
C3 and all of that. Like it's
yes, and we thought that was revolutionary,
yeah,
and right now working, you're studying for okay, chalo, maybe start like studying at a foreign university in Europe is not something that didn't happen maybe in 2000s, but surely working for a remote company in technology
yeah,
out of Pakistan,
yeah,
for Canada, I'm pretty sure if you told that to anyone back in 2000, they would have said you're
yeah.
crazy,
Yeah,
right?
even
Because even
uh,
if the company wanted to, logistics कैसे manage होते हैं, या आपके
exactly,
पास
or
वो
that's true. Possibly Nita, like even like you and I, our previous job, the level of connectivity and the level of I don't know expertise it required to literally manage something between I don't know like 4,000 miles away of each other, like हमारे जो दो offices there. And I feel like थोड़ा सा just coming, it's almost 30 minutes park हो गए, but like Even my degree, मैं जब लोगों को यहाँ पे बताता हूँ I'm doing a master's in media and उनका sudden reply था आपने बड़े होके हामिद मीर बनना है, and I'm like what the fuck dude, where did that come from, right? Like my whole degree, it's called Masters in Social Media and Society. 20 साल पहले इस तरह का कोई मास्टर्स एग्जिस्ट भी नहीं करता था क्योंकि सोशल मीडिया एग्जिस्ट नहीं करता था. लाइक माई मास्टर्स इज लिटरली फेसबुक, इंस्टाग्राम, टिकटॉक, Twitter. And right now, what happened with Twitter, my field is only going to increase, right? Because people are going to research के platforms के like platforms पे जो research कर रहे हैं उनकी research को तो मतलब इतना ज़्यादा content मिल गया क्योंकि एक बंदे ने एक platform खरीद के उस platform के मतलब ऊपर से नीचे तक उस platform को change करने की वो बातें कर रहा है. तो the world is changing so fast कि you can't cling on to a certain role कि आज जैसे आप product manager हो 10 साल बाद I don't know AI enabled product management कोई system बन जाए and like they're like AI enabled product managers as well, right? So it's all like that. It's very fluid in that way. I'd say कि हमें नहीं पता कि अब आगे क्या होगा, especially post COVID. What I feel like it's just
What I perceive from here, I agree. मैंने जो आपकी बात मैंने what I caught on from what you said is when someone said that you want to be Hamid Mir,
yeah,
and that kind of depicts the shallowness and the ceiling of our thinking, like especially people that, and it's so sad. कि
yeah,
अच्छा अब मैं आपको like if you try to deconstruct that statement even, right? Okay, why Hamid Mir? Because he's a journalist. Okay, journalist है और आपकी degree से like what you said, okay, masters in journalism, right? I'm not, I don't remember the exact master, but make
there's
exam मतलब
social
as in
media and society. Yeah, it's very it's
social
very
media and society.
it's very like अजीब सा थोड़ा सा नाम है but yeah, but it kind of tells you
So
it's very self-explanatory that way.
yeah, social media and society, right?
Yeah,
But what what really annoys the shit out of me is that the degree to which you can envision or you the degree to which you think of someone's ceiling is basically so low
yeah, that's true.
that that yeah, and chalo theek hai, you heard it and you ignored it, right? But and that's basically everyone in this country, or that's basically every parent in this country, or almost every parent in this country.
Yeah,
And those opinion are then forced on their own children, right?
yeah,
But
and
खैर वो एक अलग बात है कि that will only work for maybe the next 5 to 10 years.
yeah,
There
because
will
it's
come a
it's
time.
it's not sustainable. Like especially like our generations when the Gen Z and when the Gen Ys and the Gen Zs become parents, I think it's gonna be but different. But like अभी भी आपकी बात सही है. Doing a liberal arts education, ठीक है, I got some partial scholarship and I had the funds, but someone from the global south, like मैं यहाँ पे इंडियन से भी मिलता हूँ and mostly Indians here are doing AI, medicine, software engineering, computer science है. मैं उनको कभी कभी बताता हूँ कि मैं ये मास्टर्स कर रहा हूँ और मैं पाकिस्तान से हूँ. तो उनका भी थोड़ा सा ये रिएक्शन आता है कि यार मतलब वाई, मतलब इतने पैसे लगा के हाउ द फक विल यू बी एबल टू रिकवर इट, राइट? And I'm like, okay, ठीक है, I'm a realistic, I'm as realist as someone can be, but the things I've learned in the last year, you and I were talking about before we started recording, like even understanding information. Right now, when I open Twitter and Instagram on my phone, I can probably deconstruct everyone on my feed कि उनके दिमाग में इसका क्या चल रहा है, because I got that level of education यहाँ पे from like some of the best professors in the world, and there's so much to talk about when it comes to social media, and it's so relevant to our society. Like Pakistan is right now, Pakistan has 100 million plus broadband connections, and like all these companies are going to just expand into Pakistan. I can see in the next 10 years Meta opening its offices in Pakistan. Abhi bhi okay, they handle us from Singapore office hai, but इतना दूर नहीं है. Like Pakistan is probably one of the emerging markets when it comes to social media. They can't ignore Pakistan. The level of I don't know social media usage है पाकिस्तान के अंदर. But then again,
Yes,
it has its consequences. when it comes to
Yes and no.
misinformation. या yes हाँ वैसे वो भी है like but या मतलब
हम
problems
इमर्जिंग
हैं.
हम हम इमर्जिंग मार्केट्स के लेबल पे ना शायद पिछले तीस तीस
हाँ
तीस
हाँ
सालों से
that's
चने
true.
खाए जा रहे हैं. बिकॉज
Yeah,
like
that's
अच्छा ठीक
true.
है अब आप like for example you're someone at Meta, you're in the leadership team of Meta or Google, and now you're thinking कि अच्छा ठीक है यार पाकिस्तान में ऑफिस खोलना चाहिए. अच्छा डिपेंड करता है right? पाकिस्तान में ऑफिस क्यों खोलना है? अगर पाकिस्तान से टैलेंट सोर्स करना है क्योंकि चीप है तो श्योर व्हाई नॉट राइट. बट आई स्टिल फील लाइक कितने आपके कंप्यूटर साइंस के ग्रेजुएट हैं टोटल कुल मिला के महीने में 20,000 30,000 साल में निकलते हैं. और उसमें से कितने हैं ऐसे हैं विच आर एट पार विथ व्हाट यू नो ग्लोब विच आर
I
एट पार
think
विथ ग्लोबल स्टैंडर्ड.
1%, 2-3%. I
क्या
think that's
राइट
10%.
बट खैर चल.
Yeah.
I I don't know the exact number. I'm just saying that sure, these companies might think about setting up shop here to train and recruit global talent because it's cheap. I see that happening. It's already happening.
Yeah.
But if you think, think about how is that adding to your economy, and how is that
Very
adding
good
to your
point.
to your country's growth? It is thoda sa because I see, but then when you get hired, you bring foreign investment inside in the form of remittance. अच्छा, लेकिन जो मैं बात कर रहा हूँ ये कि अगर आप if you're thinking about setting up an office here because there is business to be done in Pakistan. अगर अभी मैं भूल जाऊँ if I take out the complexity of Meta's metaverse business, if I think about Facebook का रेवेन्यू कहाँ से आता है? एड से आता है. एड्स कौन मतलब पाकिस्तानी कहाँ से खरीदेंगे? पाकिस्तानी अपने लोकल प्रोडक्ट्स ही खरीदेंगे ना.
Hmm.
मतलब एज इन आप और मैं जो फेसबुक पे ऐड आ रहा है वो कैम्ब्रिज की क्लोथिंग का
Uh,
खरीदोगे ना.
hmm.
आप मतलब एज इन वो जो अमेरिका में गैप का कोई
हाँ
शर्ट बिक
और
रहा है या पोलो शर्ट
ज़ारा
बिक रहा है.
H&M इस वक्त पाकिस्तान में है नहीं तो वो तो आप खरीदने से रहे जो कि
नहीं
लिटरली
any
any
you're
any
going to
yeah.
you're only going to buy that which can be shipped and is available in this country right.
Yeah, that's
तो
true.
अब वो जो खरीदने वाला है उसके पास एक परचेजिंग पावर होनी चाहिए
Hmm.
राइट. और उस परचेजिंग पावर के लिए एक तो उस बंदे के पास परचेजिंग पावर होनी चाहिए. दूसरी चीज ये कि जो बेच रहा है do they have enough money to be able to advertise on platforms right like
नहीं
Meta or
that's very
Facebook.
true. That's very true. That's very
So
true.
if you think of so it's this kind of we have to there is this amazing article recently Mifta like Mifta Ismail who's a
The
former
1%
finance minister
1% Republic वाला भी था.
the 1% Republic right.
Hmm.
Unfortunately unfortunately and again it's a more recent realization. हमने अपना जो एक टनल विजन की बात करते हैं ना कि आपने अपना विजन और अपना स्कोप इतना कम कर दिया है that even the elite in this country in my opinion are so dumb. eh, eh,
That's true.
what
That's
right
true.
because if you look at our next door neighbors
मैं
their
उन्हीं की
corruption
बात करने
or
वाला था. मैं उन्हीं की बात करने वाला था. The
uh,
problems are pretty much
I,
the same. But
it's embarrassing, right? For example, but think about it. For how long did you support Imran Khan and all of his mantra of okay, end corruption because like you thought that was the problem until not very
2018.
long ago,
2018.
right? But you did, like for example, and think about how many of 2018 Shariars and how many of 2018 Abdul Ghaffars are still there, and are still buying into all of that bullshit. I still think Imran Khan will win the popular vote, and if he wins the popular vote, he should get into the office. But that's a different thing that I don't really want to get into. But मेरा कहने का मकसद ये कि it's so easy to sell to sell us this like bullshit about okay okay you're a cornered tiger.
Yeah,
You're an economy
it's
that's
just
going to
populism. It's just like after studying like 10 courses on populism,
populism is
it's
also too simplistic of a, it's
yeah,
populism is also too simplistic of a
yeah,
statement because populism in Pakistan अगर आप इमरान खान
it's
की बात
very
कर रहे हो तो
different.
वो पिछले नहीं
Hmm.
in the past 6 7 years आया है ना. मैं तो 30 40 50 साल की बात कर रहा हूँ.
Hmm.
पाकिस्तान की हिस्ट्री में कोई सा भी उठा के देख लो. Hosea Yunus has done great work on this and it
Yeah,
traces back into any अगर आप कोई भी फर्स्ट IMF डील से लेकर अभी रिसेंट IMF डील के देख लो वही रोना सेम रोना है.
yeah, that's
the
true.
po-
That's
the
true.
the po- the point that I was getting towards was that So there's a share of the pie. That's six. That's and Zaki gave me, okay, one of my very close friend gave me this example. आपके 7 inch pie है ना? Like Pakistan के 7 inch pie है. You नहीं, actually, sorry that I'm sorry that this is an example I think Mifta Ismail gave on his podcast with Shehzad
Azad, I
Hira
think.
Sheikh.
Yeah, which Azad. I
I
listened
do
to the podcast.
I I'm not sure, but anyways, what he was saying was that if you have a 8 inch pie, 7 inch pie, ठीक है, आप उसमें से 7 inch pie में से खुद 6 inch pie में से खुद 5.98 पाई इंच खा लेते हो. आप 0.02% जो है आप अपने बाकी लोगों को देते हो. ठीक है,
Mhm.
good for
That's
you.
true. That's true.
You're still very well off. You're living the life of a king. But what if you can double the pie, right? What if you could have
Yeah.
a 12 inch
Yeah.
pie and you're eating 11 inch, but you give 1 inch to
Yeah.
the people?
और हमारी एलीट ये भी नहीं सोचती, मतलब उन्हीं का
But
फायदा है अगर पाई डबल हो जाए तो, लेकिन उससे
yep,
रिपल इफेक्ट
I,
जो लोगों पर आएगा वो भी डबल हो जाएगा.
yeah, and that's the thing, right? That it's a sad state of affairs. That so I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic
Yeah.
about I'm very optimistic because of three things. I'm very optimistic because I think the next change or the next wave of activism, the next wave of revolution is going to be brought by a force that almost none of the politicians foresee, and it's
That's
not
true.
the youth. It's not the youth.
Yeah.
It's the women in this
Yeah,
country.
that's true. That's true. And it's already happening. If you just
Or
follow Iran and Afghanistan for the last 3 months, things which are happening in Iran right now, Pakistanis, because हमारा अपना political turmoil इतना ज़्यादा है, some fascinating things are happening there after 43 years. After 1979, for the first time, a revolution is coming there. Like people are just it's very fascinating for our part of the world. And पता नहीं हमारे यहाँ लोग अभी तक इस पे इतना ध्यान नहीं दे रहे. But yeah, it's gonna be a women-led revolution, and I'm also saying it's gonna be a very anti, let's say, traditional elite or जो patriarchal elite है हमारी, उसके भी anti आने वाला है, because even the Middle East, like I have a lot of Saudi people here in my city as well, and they are in no way similar to what we perceive of Saudi Arabia. They are very different people, and yeah, it's gonna change. It's gonna be a very uh, I think time lagega, but you're right about the women-led wala part.
it's going to be women-led. There's going to be advancements in technology that are going to. So, when I say advancements in technology, that will change the the equation in a way जहाँ पर पहले थोड़ा मुश्किल था कि to be able to kind of set our path correct, but with advancements in technology, it's going to be easier to do so. So what do I mean
Exactly,
by that?
exactly. In fact, social media, अगर हम सिर्फ social media example ले लें, a lot of regimes जहाँ पे censorship बहुत prevalent है, पाकिस्तान में तो like thankfully नहीं है, but even those regimes are pretty much done with censoring. वो क्या कर लेंगे? You can censor someone, but you can never censor someone online, right? आप online, आप platforms तो ban करने से रहे, because your economy is dependent on the platforms now. आप जितना मर्जी कर लो, you can never censor someone on a platform, right? You
So
can.
I'm specifically referring to technological advancements that so
Hmm.
एक तो मैं इसमें तीन चीजें cover कर रहा था. एक तो ये कि you're going to see women-led activism and revolution.
Yeah.
You're going to see advancements in technology, and you're going to see advancements in proliferation and in the internet. So I think you were talking about the third part, which is the
Yeah,
internet.
I'm talking about the third part because
Yep.
I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan of internet. I'm pro internet in whatever I do.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the greatest equalizer that has ever been there, right?
yeah.
It's a way that it's been the greatest leveling fields ever.
And I feel like it's a self-correcting mechanism. You don't have to regulate the internet. अगर कुछ बुरा है तो वो खुद ही die down कर जाएगा. Like even in our country, a former prime minister got shot, and the news died down in 2 days because our team got into the finals. which is something people don't care about. But as an internet researcher, this is fascinating. 30 years ago this wouldn't have happened. वो जो पहली हेडलाइन थी, वो 15 दिन हमारी अखबारों पे हेडलाइन रहती. But today it died down in 2 days, which is
It died
very,
down, but it
yeah,
died down, yes, it died down, sure. But for example, the propaganda
yeah,
exploitation from
yeah.
that is
That's
never go. It's not.
that's
नहीं, but
gonna.
it's important to say कि वो self-correcting mechanism है, but those that know how to exploit the system are also very well aware
Hmm,
to know कि
असल
for
में
example
हाँ,
अच्छा देखो politicians जो हैं वो propaganda या politicians जो हैं वो politicking या वो कब करते हैं जब उनको वोट चाहिए होते हैं, right?
exactly.
So sure, it might not live but it might be at the back of your mind, but it's still there. uh,
Hmm,
so मैं जिस पे पॉइंट कर रहा था कि वो एक्शन इंड्यूसिंग, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल इट्स अ सेल्फ करेक्टिंग मैकेनिज्म, बट it डिपेंड करता है कि आपकी हर सोशल मीडिया का इंटरेक्शन का उसके पीछे जो कंपनी है उसका एक्शन क्या है इंड्यूस करना, राइट?
exactly,
फॉर एग्जांपल,
exactly.
सो खैर वो एक डिफरेंट
असल
बात
में ना
for
इसमें
different
आई वांट टू ऐड समथिंग एज वेल. यू एंड आई आर प्रॉब्ली अगेन वो प्रिविलेज वाली बात आ गई, और वो लिबरल आर्ट्स और वर्ल्ड व्यू वाली बात आ गई. हमें ये चीजें समझ आ जाती हैं. व्हेन आई ओपन ट्विटर आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि ये प्रोपेगेंडा हो रहा है, ये मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन हो रही है. बट 90% of our country lives off WhatsApp forwards. Even like, I don't know, my dad मुझे कभी कभी ऐसी चीजें फॉरवर्ड कर रहे होते हैं जिसको मैं आराम से डीकंस्ट्रक्ट कर सकता हूँ, because मेरे पास वो लेवल ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज आ गई है. But I'm talking,
अच्छा, I don't hold this belief, by the way. I no longer, after being fooled so many times, I'm none the wiser. I
but like
actually think
at
that
least we think के हमें ये चीजें समझ आ गई हैं. We were talking about the 2018 वाला शहरियार and Ghaffar, but the thing is कि यहाँ पे I've met people overseas. I've met Pakistanis overseas. I'm talking about chemical engineers, bankers, vice president of big tech companies who are, I don't know, जिनको ये propaganda feed किया जा रहा है. I'm not talking about Imran Khan in particular. Any propaganda, any I don't know, any world problem.
yeah, अच्छा, I have also this, by the way, sorry, just to kind of add something here. This idea of propaganda feed किया जा रहा है, I have a problem with that statement. देखो, आज के ज़माने में unless you're living in China where you really don't have
Yeah,
access to an alternative form of
yeah.
an
आपकी अपनी
alternative.
choice होती है to consume all of that.
It's your own choice. It's like for example, if you're not willing, अच्छा हाँ, इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा एम्फेसिस ये भी होता है कि आपकी कल्चरल सेटिंग क्या है, आप किस एनवायरनमेंट में ग्रो
Hmm.
हुए हो, श्योर, बट देयर हैज टू बी अ पॉइंट वेयर वी start to call out an orange as an orange and say कि अच्छा यार, there is some responsibility on the individual here as well. कि यार अच्छा
Then they get
ठीक है कि
offended ना. Then they get offended ना, because sorry आपकी बात काट रहा हूँ, but the thing is कि आजकल के ज़माने में जब वो उस तरह का कंटेंट कंज्यूम करते हैं ना, तो उनको वो डोपामीन रश उसी कंटेंट की बेसिस पे मिलता है. And when you point out the, I don't know, the anomaly in their whole process ना, तब वो they just feel attacked, because unki existence is kind of now dependent on that dopamine rush which they are getting from TikToks and Twitter trends, and I don't know, ferocious tweets about the people they don't like. But yeah, it is what it is. Like it's a mess.
but, but you are well aware, like for example, in this in this game theory equation, you're also like for example, the rules of the game unfair नहीं है ना.
हाँ,
मार्केट मतलब एज इन आप वही सेम रूल्स जो है एक्सप्लॉइट करके अपना मैसेज या अपना एजेंडा, राइट? एट द एंड ऑफ द डे, you even liberals have an agenda, right? At the end of the
they
day,
do.
say for
Everything is an
example, you and
agenda.
you
Yeah,
you
everything is an
you you
agenda.
and you and I have an agenda. It's an
Yeah,
unfortunately उसको negative connotation दे दी हमने,
yeah.
but you and I have the same rules of the game. How do if someone is working super hard to be able to, like, and I'm talking about right wing populists, if they're working super hard, if they're using data more, like for example, like हम Trump team को बोले इमरान खान के लिए, like, he has the best fucking social media team in the world,
That's true.
like
That's
like,
true.
right?
If not the
If he's
world, definitely in the global south. That's true. No
Yeah,
one
yeah.
can,
Sorry,
no one can beat.
the world is an exaggeration. I don't. Okay, in Pakistan की बात ही
But
कर लेते हैं,
even they've learned a lot from the American playbook. They've learned a lot from the Obama 2012
right?
campaign when just the internet hit the
But
world and Obama got elected.
if they are willing to do the work to be able to
Yeah,
forward their
yeah,
agenda,
yeah,
what is stopping you, right? If you are like, and this is where I really don't buy into any alternate. Like for example, if Imran Khan will, okay, again we're getting too much into politics that I
yeah.
really
वो
want to
हम
avoid,
उस पे भी बात तो नहीं कर रहे थे, but you're right about that. Everyone
right?
has level playing field. आपके पास कंप्यूटर है, इंटरनेट है, यूट्यूब है. आपकी
और
फीड
ऐसा
आप
तो
खुद
नहीं,
डिटरमिन करते हो. आपकी फीड पे क्या
और
आएगा.
ऐसा और ऐसा तो नहीं है कि like and to I think I particularly have been very pessimistic in this regard. I actually think it's already being done. Like for example,
It
ये
is.
जो अभी बहुत recently in Pakistan, if everyone followed, ये जो रबिया अनम है, अमन है,
Yeah,
like for
yeah.
example,
She
she
left.
walked,
She left. Show live. Nida Yasir का show था,
she
I suppose.
yeah, she left her show live, and then what happened? अच्छा ये हुआ फिरोज खान जो है, he got called
हाँ,
out by this actor, I think Ikra Aziz, and then she said she'd cancel a show, and then she publicized it. अच्छा, now there are two ways to look at it: glass half full, glass half empty. अगर
yeah.
glass half empty देखना है तो आप देखो कि अच्छा, oh my God, so many people are still sympathizing with him. Oh, so many people are saying कि इस पे औरत कार्ड प्ले किया जा रहा है, and that I think is the majority, or it's a perceived majority, मुझे ऐसा लगता है.
हाँ,
But it might be, it might not be. If you look at it from a glass half full perspective, what do I see? I again see a counterculture movement, तो नहीं बोलूंगा क्योंकि movement के लिए organized होना जरूरी है. But I see a counterculture effort, right, that
exactly,
is starting to gain some momentum, and
exactly.
people are starting to call out bullshit. Bullshit. Acha, I can promise you that the same Ikra Aziz and the same Rabia Anam would not have had the courage, like even if they had the right intention, would not have had the courage, because had they not believed that if they did this and they lost out the deal or they lost out a contract, it would
Hmm.
be financially very difficult for them. They
That's
know
true.
that there is an enough audience that will support them,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
henceforth
And
they will survive.
ये
And
पाकिस्तान
oh
में
yeah,
recent change आया है. It's the
yeah,
ये
and
जो
it's a
wave आई
it's
है.
it's
It's very it's sorry बात कर रहा हूँ, but वही बात है ना कि मैंने यहीं यहीं पे आके इन चीजों के बारे में बात पड़ा है कि echo chambers and polarization जरूरी नहीं है कि बुरी हो, क्योंकि इन्हीं
yeah,
echo
yeah,
chambers
not
और
at all.
polarization से इस तरह की चीजें निकलती हैं. एंड अक्सर if you see like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, पाकिस्तानीज को ना अभी भी ट्रोल किया जाता है फॉर देयर कमेंट्स. मैं अक्सर देखता हूँ वाइट व्लॉगर्स, हॉलीवुड एक्ट्रेसेस, इवन पाकिस्तानीज themselves इंस्टाग्राम पे किसी बेचारे ने आके आई डोंट नो गुजरावाला से कोई कमेंट कर दिया, उनको ना बड़ा ट्रोल किया जाता है और उनको बड़ा स्टिग्मेटाइज किया जाता है. बट वो लोग ये नहीं रियलाइज कर रहे कि वो बेचारा, उसको ना उस तरह की कभी जिंदगी में एजुकेशन मिली, वो ना कभी बेचारा अच्छे स्कूल गया होगा, बट उसके पास एक स्मार्टफोन है और स्मार्टफोन पे उसका इंस्टाग्राम अकाउंट है. वो एक दफा ट्रोल होगा, दो दफा ट्रोल होगा, तीन दफा ट्रोल होगा, इट्स नॉट बैड, चौथी दफा वो कमेंट सोच के करेगा. एंड पाकिस्तान इज गोइंग थ्रू दैट वेव. अगर किसी ने कोई आई डोंट नो अनएक्सेप्टेबल कमेंट कर दिया है या कोई इस तरह की ऑनलाइन हरकत कर दी है, उसको उसका जो पनिशमेंट है ना वो इंटरनेट ही दे देगा, और वो फिर इंटरनेट ही उसको करेक्ट कर देगा उसके कोर्स को. तो एंड वी आर गोइंग थ्रू दैट प्रोसेस. अगर आप देखो, आई नो अ लॉट ऑफ माय फ्रेंड्स जिन्होंने जो बहुत ज्यादा इंटरनेट सेवी हो गए हैं, जो एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे कट डाउन कर रहे हैं, दूसरे प्लेटफॉर्म पे बढ़ रहे हैं, क्योंकि उनको पता है कि उनकी हेल्थ के लिए मे बी इंस्टाग्राम अभी के लिए वो कट डाउन कर देते हैं, ट्विटर पे ज्यादा एक्टिव हो जाते हैं, ट्विटर से वर्चुअली माइग्रेट करके टिकटॉक पे चले जाते हैं. सो या ये तो खैर एक इट्स एन एंटायरली डिफरेंट टॉपिक एंड आई एम वेरी इंटरेस्टेड इन दैट एज वेल. उसके बारे में तो खैर हम बात कर सकते हैं. वी आर ऑलमोस्ट मोर देन एन आवर हो गया है, एंड मुझे पता है पाकिस्तान में इस वक्त सुबह के 5:45 हो रहे हैं. So we're just gonna go towards the end. The last question I would say जो मुझे बात करनी थी कि I'm outside Pakistan right now. You're in Pakistan. I'm sure a lot of your friends, my friends, are either in Pakistan or going abroad, and this whole process is happening all the early 20 people in their early 20s. What do you want to say to people?
I'm not in my early 20s. I'm 26 now, unfortunately.
I'm 25 as well. Maybe मैं अभी भी अपने आप को ना early 20s बोलता हूँ. I should say late 20s. But yeah, that's I'm 25 as well. But okay, what do you want to say to people who are watching this, who are in LUMS, IBA, Habib, Bhairia, KU right now, 19-20 साल के, and उनको अभी से ये उनके दिमाग पे ये प्रेशर डाल दिया जाने कि पाकिस्तान से तो बस निकलना है. एक तो वो जो बाइनरी है ना हमारे मुल्क में कि बस या तो निकलना है या रहना है. एक तो आई डोंट बिलीव इन बाइनरी. I feel like in a post-COVID world, you are sitting in Karachi or Lahore, I'm not sure, Karachi right now,
Karachi.
and you're working for a Canadian company. I'm sitting in a village in the Netherlands, and I'm talking to you while you're in Karachi. So it's very hybrid now, I suppose. So just your take on everyone who's watching, in their freshman and sophomore year, and who are just thinking about their future right now. Sort of cliche,
Uh, so
but yeah.
no, had you asked me a year ago or a year and 2 months ago, I would have had a very different answer. Had you asked me 4 months ago, I would have had a very different answer. You're asking me right now, and I think I have a very different answer. But I think of all those three responses, this one is the most measured because वो जाहिर सी बात है हमारा दिमाग मतलब as in it's
It's
उसकी
impacted
compute
by what's
capacity का
happening around us now. हमेशा से.
नहीं it's नहीं but it's also about like the more data points that you get the more informed you are. तो अगर मैं उसको so here's my point, right? To everyone who's wanting to get out of this country, it's understandable. Or one can even sympathize with you. Um, but not everyone will, right? अच्छा
It's
आपकी बाहर
unnatural.
जाने की
It's unnatural. Not everyone even
it's
can't. It's the laws of
every
physics won't like agree to that कि कुछ 22 करोड़ लोग तो नहीं जा सकते ना बाहर. It's just a
or नहीं everyone can't
possibility.
and even like within the elite 20-30,000 जो एक A levels या जो भी उसको सिलाते हैं जिनकी हम बात कर सकते हैं वो कर सकते होते मुझे नहीं लगता कि उसमें भी everyone can और उसके बाद फिर there are a lot of different hurdles to cross, right? Nationalism, the way that economies जो आजकल की perform कर रही हैं, like for example, if you thought getting a job, अगर आपको जॉब के लिए करना है, आप जॉब के लिए माइग्रेट कर रहे हो, तो अब कंपनीज के लिए रिमोट हायरिंग इतनी आसान बन गई है कि you going there might not add any value to your
That's
portfolio or
true.
to your, you
They
know,
won't go the
that
extra
you
mile
might
for you. They won't go the extra mile
they
for you unless you're like a extremely talented resource. They can just hire
yes, right.
you on a USD
So
salary in Pakistan.
so long story short, that it's going to be it not everyone can. Those that want to get out and find better opportunities and are convinced about it, sure, I am too. Um, but here's my kind of informed opinion lately. One, someone really needs to fix this shit, and it's not one person's job. I think we really need to get out of this messiah complex that we got ourselves into several times in the past, that one person can fix the thing. I don't think when I'm saying any one individual, like it needs to be a collected effort. It needs to be an effort that it's it's like a social contract. But care I don't
Yeah, I get it.
that's
I
a
get it. You're basically talking about rewriting the social contract between the state and the society, like renegotiating it. But वो तो खैर बहुत बड़ी बात हो जाएगी because जो traditional expectations है from a state जिस जो हम पढ़े हुए हैं वो तो अब they're not there anymore. Not even for Pakistan, for all around the world, people in the US, people in the Netherlands, people in Canada, they don't want वो जो एक traditional था कि just life मतलब I feel like people now, what people genuinely want after COVID is just sincerity. मतलब ठीक है आपके पास पैसे नहीं हैं. Right now, what people want is just someone to look after them, and the
yeah
state
and
is inherently the one who has to look after its subject.
no
Uh,
but care point ये कर रहा था कि different social contract is one thing, but I think we often at times underperceive our value too. Like for example, even in your capacity as someone who can just use social media and start to, you know, populate or start to convey their opinions on things, you know, and that might not completely, but that might be heard by 10 people in their surrounding and influenced in a positive way. I promise you that's change.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
it's easier to do so now than it has ever been. And the third thing, if you want to be truly insanely successful now, like if you want to get bonkers money, that can only happen if you're in Pakistan. Um, because you can only be like, there is so much of resource extraction that is available. Like अगर
That's
आप
true.
simple economics जो
And
almost
I
हर
would
बच्चा
say
पढ़ता है वो ये कि
unchecked resource extraction है मतलब no regulatory body is gonna come
और
after kick like knocking
no,
your door.
they
They
will.
might, but then again you
No,
get
no,
away
they
with that as well.
definitely will because they उनके तो rent seeking है ना.
हाँ,
खैर लेकिन मैं तो ये बोल रहा था कि and there is this unbelieved like मैं वैसे सोचता हूँ recent times में what's like cricket has given me so much more hope and I don't want to start a
exactly.
chapter on cricket because हम
Yeah,
बहुत ज़्यादा उस पे चले
that's
जाएंगे.
yeah. There's
But if you
some
think
things in
about
Pakistan that give you a lot of hope. For me, it's
no,
cricket.
but
Yeah,
for me, like for
startups.
example, even if Pakistan got out in group stages, it would have still brought me a lot of hope. Primarily, why? Why? Because it showed me that when you fix certain, if you don't fix all parts of the system, but you fix certain parts of the system, right?
That's true.
PSL.
That's
If you
true.
fix certain, you didn't fix the academies, you didn't fix the, matlab, as in domestic circuit system, yet you
Yeah, it's
fixed certain parts of the system.
yeah.
Then you left it up to the willingness and the hard work of the individuals, and voila, you have one of
You
the
have an
best
amazing
performing.
product and बल्कि ये इतनी अच्छी बात है. I've never thought of applying to the Pakistan cricket ideology to the what happened with our cricket is. And like I want to talk about our music as well. Our indie music scene. I've had Indian friends here who are like who are down on our emerging indie artists. They love Hassan Rahim. They love, I would say,
And it's
Tahaji and all of these new emerge. They're gonna do anything for Coke Studio. They're gonna, I don't know, fly from the US if they can get just see the Coke Studio set.
and
And
it's not really that difficult to replicate these
yeah,
models, right? Because
yeah.
and up मैंने देखा recently, like for example, they had a under 19 की league and like
PJL,
उसमें से
they had
all
an anthem for that, and they had like 30 plus foreign players coming in. Not that okay, Gore players coming are is a benchmark for success, but people are talking about that league in the world. Like I was seeing this कोई football team है इंग्लैंड की Crystal Palace FC जिनके ड्रेसिंग रूम में बातें हो रही थी कि कौन जीतेगा, पाकिस्तान जीतेगा, इंग्लैंड
नहीं और वो डॉक्टर अब वो वही बात है ना कि अब क्या हुआ कि वहां पे और ओवरसीज पाकिस्तानी तो इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें हैं कि and I'm not really that qualified to speak on those things, but for example, there is a role of overseas Pakistanis to be able
there
to
is
start to spread their culture and really push
there
the,
definitely
you know,
is.
push
Yeah,
the button where it's important to say. And मतलब as in जो ये आजकल critique चल रही है on the civil establishment roles, ये और increase होनी चाहिए. Second चीज है कि demand more from your, leaders. Just separate the church and state, though I don't think it's ever going to happen in my
it's
lifetime in
not
this
gonna
country.
happen in our lifetime, dude. वो नहीं होने वाला.
Uh, but
Yeah,
anyway, so
it's
this, yeah, I देखो ना मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ मैं कल पढ़ रहा था कि पता नहीं कहीं मैं कुछ दिन पहले ट्वीट देख रहा था तुम्हें पता है you know how the revolutions don't necessarily start when people are in the worst conditions. Revolutions
no,
start when people are
no,
in remotely like थोड़े better conditions में होते हैं and when they
exactly.
are able to see that this is what is possible,
Yeah.
like that's when they get
And it's
bonkers
just
and
it's just one triggering point, but some end की तरफ ही जा रहे हैं. Like if you look at in the past, right? Revolution, the traditional revolutions नहीं होते. Revolution is gonna be tech enabled. It's gonna be on digital media, and it's just this one thing. Like in Iran, for example, I keep on giving that example, but that girl who died in their custody, or even in the Arab Spring, there was just one fruit vendor जिसने अपने Tunisia में अपने आप को आग लगा दी, and four Arab monarchies abolished, right? वहां पे democracy आ गई just for one रेडी वाला बंदा जिसने अपने आप को आग लगा दी, right? So yeah, I'm gonna like मैं बहुत इधर उधर हो रहा हूँ, but yeah, we're just gonna end it because we're almost on the 1 hour 20 minute mark, and मैंने आप और उठा के नहीं रखना तुम्हें, it's your weekend tomorrow. But yeah, it was a pleasure, Afar, to finally connecting with you after a while, and I'm sure we can talk about a lot of other stuff as well. But यहाँ पे बहुत रात हो गई है. We can maybe like connect later whenever you're free, because your time zone suits me as well. And yeah,
Yep,
and
sounds.
here's to hoping that everything in Pakistan works out well. For people who are watching this, I feel like there's always a ray of hope. If I can be here after living in Pakistan all my life and just like going like applying for all of the schools and just ending up here, if Kafar can work for a Canadian company while sitting in Karachi, then a lot of you who are watching can do a lot of other stuff as well. It's just about time, and it's just about, I don't know, मैं थोड़ा सा manifestation में भी believe करता हूँ. But yeah, any closing comments, and then we're just gonna end this.
Nope. I'm extremely sorry that I probably have during this conversation मैं बहुत
नहीं नहीं,
derail भी हुआ हूँ
I
और
get it, I get it. That's the beauty of a conversation, right? It's not an interview, it's a podcast, and I feel like we can talk whatever we want to, and
no
it
वो
just
तो
comes
ठीक है
out
लेकिन मैं
naturally.
I yeah I've been extreme I'm also tired तो
Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. You had a work day. For all those जिन्होंने अभी तक channel मेरा subscribe नहीं करा, please do that. It helps me to create on content like this. It's just a passion project for me. And yeah, and if you have any feedback, comments, may just write that down, and I'm gonna give you Khafar's LinkedIn profile as well if you want to reach out to him for anything you want to. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye guys. Good night.